Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Monday. Hold on. Are we going to get music here? Oh, you know what? I must not have. No, that's not right. How come nothing's coming out? It must be playing. It must be playing it to my ear. There we go. Okay, but now why is it not playing my 100 Thieves hype tracks? There we go. That was weird. Spotify being weird. I was like, oh, we're off to such a good start. Then we had a little bit of trouble with the music. Anyways, but we're here on time. So that's relatively good. All right, guys, let's come over to the charts. We might have a good Monday here. Normally, Mondays are really tight and not very interesting. And I must admit, we are pretty tight here in the treasuries, okay? But we've got a bunch of flows coming through here today that might kind of mix things up. So let's come and look at what happened. Okay, well, the big thing over the weekend, there was concerns that strikes by Iran against Israel would cause World War III, hence the title of the video. Need to sneeze. Anyways, it happened, and there was leaks and stories that the Biden administration basically gave Iran the go-ahead to do the strikes and just not do any damage, and then Israel wouldn't respond back, and that would be the end of it. So that is why the market is kind of coming back here. All of that risk premium from Friday has essentially been retraced and come out of the market, and we are back onto, you know, inflation selling flows. So that's a pretty big deal here in the treasuries. The S&P 500 also rallying off of that. Now, the S&P 500 is kind of in a very interesting spot. We'd have to get much lower, but another 100 points or so, and we're getting into some spots where CTAs and so forth start to trigger short. And we're in a blackout period for the S&P 500, and we got taxes, which tends not to be very good. So there's a couple of flows together here in the S&P 500 that kind of suggests sell, but with retail and, you know, relief rally and everything, that might be a little bit mixed. So the S&P 500, I think, is going to be a tough one to trade today. Oil is coming off, and there are a lot. Okay, why is it not going to my 100 Thieves playlist, huh? What are you doing? Removed chart smart shuffle recommendations. I do not understand. If I come over here, okay, that does something. But then if I come over here, there. Okay, I think I fixed it. Okay, oil was up there, it's coming off. But something curious about oil is that the hedge funds and so forth continue to be short oil. There's still kind of this thing that, like, there's not enough demand to actually support these prices above 90, if not above 80. And so all of the funds and everything have decided to stay short. And of course, they've been getting squeezed, but today things are going their way. So you might continue to see some pretty volatile things happen over in oil, I believe. Now, gold and silver, man, oh my gosh, what the heck? Something about my wife's car throwing the phone to come off, and maybe if I turn the Bluetooth on my phone off, and that might fix it. Anyways, where was I? Gold and silver coming off big. So a lot of that move up was the global security flight to safety sort of flows, I guess, in gold and silver. But what about copper? Copper's still doing okay. And the Japanese yen, Japanese yen does not look good. And so we continue to have a strong dollar. That's something else that might kind of make things hard. And Bitcoin had a fairly significant sell-off over the weekend as well, but nothing huge. Okay, so now I'm seeing everything thin off, so I guess there is some news here. Well, we're gonna get retail sales, of course. All right, here we go.
Block sell.
Oof. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so U.S. retail sales month over month, spot 7 versus an expected spot 4. New York Fed manufacturer negative 14.3 versus an expected negative 5. So slightly mixed news, but retail sales is a much bigger number, right? So that's going to push them down. Wow. It's funny to watch those micro treasuries hold in there. Okay, somebody hit them there. That was interesting. Okay. There's some interesting liquidity there in the micro treasuries off of that retail sales news. Okay, so let's come in and list all of the flows we got. There's a lot here today. Also, we got Fed's Williams speaking. So, retail sales hot. New York Fed manufacturing. What should we say? Worse than expected. Fed's Williams speaks. And then we also have tax day. Buyback blackout period. Flight to safety unwind. CTA short around 50-80. Yes, 50-80. CTAs or well, let's say funds heavily short oil. Okay, let me blow my nose here. So Williams is on Bloomberg. Let's note that. When they are speaking on the news networks, a little bit more likely to move things. So, consumer spending driven by strong fundamentals, says Mr. Williams. Do we have anything else today? Oh, Goldman Sachs is this morning. Okay. 6-month bills. Bill auction. Okay. So yeah, we got a lot going on today. This is one of the most busy Mondays I've seen in a long time. Oh, now that's interesting. All of that kind of messing around was happening at 4.59, and now even though the treasuries are kind of pulling back, the micros are above 4.6. So there was actually and it may have something to do with the yield curve too, but it looks like there was actually an opportunity for us to arbitrage here at 4.59. You see all those? Oh, that's weird. That is really weird. I'm starting to think there's nothing really worth taking seriously. Why is that? Because you thought World War III would start, and now it's kind of all blown over, and it kind of feels like a what would you call it? A pre-planned war or something like. I don't know what that means. Man, I hate it when you guys use a reference I don't understand like that. In wrestling, the practice of trying to make people believe that wrestlers are particular characters when in fact they are only pretending to be those characters. Oh, theater. Yeah. Well, this whole situation is really weird. Okay. Feds Williams, hold on a second here. I got like so many thoughts in my head. I don't know what it was that Williams said, but we had a little bit of a move up there. I don't know if it was related to what he was saying on Bloomberg or not, but he's still speaking. Just keep that in mind. I have to go and look. So I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this. Or rather, maybe I have seen a situation like this, but we didn't know that that's what was going on. Thinking about Iran, we were getting all of these reports that they thought an attack from Iran was imminent, and it happened over the weekend. And then after it happened, we started getting all of these reports that the Biden administration basically, through a back channel with Iran, okayed the attacks, as long as the attacks weren't going to do too much damage. So they send a bunch of drones and everything. Israel spends $1 billion on munitions and everything protecting themselves. Nothing gets hurt. Iran gets to act like they did something and save face, but like a real war doesn't start. And in turn, the United States then turns to Israel and says, we're not going to support you retaliating. Okay. So the whole thing kind of feels like theater, right? We all know now that Iran launched the attacks just to look good to their people so that their people don't say, hey, we can't let Israel get away with attacking us. We have to do something back, right? Otherwise, so this is what's going on. Okay. Now, the thing that's weird about it is maybe this has happened in the past before, but you don't say anything. Like putting out in the media that that's what happened kind of like makes it not work, wouldn't you think? But I guess if it's for the people of Iran, they're not going to hear anything about this. And, and it seems to me that the Biden administration is doing this because Israel is a huge vulnerability for them. Because their part of their base is a very strongly supportive of Israel. And then the other part of their base, the activist wing of their base, is extremely anti-Israel at this point. Like it's getting to the point now where, you've got like protesters in Michigan saying death to America, and the politicians refuse to condemn it. Like they outright ask them in interviews, like, do you condemn this, protesting death to America and stuff? And they avoid answering the question. Isn't that wild? But that's because there's a pretty large Muslim base in Michigan now, and they rely on them in order to win that state. So you got this whole thing going on. And it seems to me that the Biden administration thinks that they're pretty smart. That, hey, like we avoided World War III, we did a little deal. We should tell everybody how smart we are. And so they put this story out, right? But to us, especially on the conservative and on the more, let's say, passive or rather anti-interventionist side of the GOP wing, it feels like this is all like pre-planned wars and theater and everything, right? So I think, now does this hurt Biden or help him? That's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird question to tackle. I feel like that one of the things that hurts Biden, I mean, obviously the big thing that hurts Biden is that he's old and that he seems incompetent, right? But I think one of the other things that hurts Biden is that he seems so, like, deeply ingrained in the establishment, per se, right? Like people on both sides of the aisle hate him because it feels like he was just, like, installed by the deep state, this sort of a thing, right? And so him diffusing a potential global crisis in that manner feels super shady, right? It feels very deep state. So from that respect, depending on how much widespread coverage that gets, I think kind of hurts his standing among a lot of people. But I don't know if it explicitly hurts or helps him or what. Like, the thing is I've never seen anything like this, so I'm kind of a little bit I'm a little bit unsure what to think of it, to be honest with you, because the whole thing just seems really weird. But yeah, he was installed. There you go. So for the markets, though, the markets, you can very clearly see this, like, everybody was concerned about it going into the weekend. There was some people selling the volatility, though, and then all of that stuff happened, and the clamping down on volatility won, and on all of those moves reversed. Now, I should take a moment here to think about the retail sales that we just got. The treasuries are being a little weird. I am not sure what is going on over there, because the 10-year yield doesn't seem to be the prices that it probably should be, right? Because when we were down here at the lows in the 10-year, they were not at these, shouldn't we be much lower than this now, like 4.59 in yield? I don't know. But then the treasuries sold because, hot inflation or hot retail sales, that's going to continue to drive inflation. And since we're already concerned about inflation, like that's really going to drive more concerns about inflation, right? So you would think treasuries sell, that equities would also sell on anticipation of higher interest rates. But instead they said, no, we think that the retail sales being good and being good for earnings matters more in ES, which I wouldn't have completely expected that to dominate, but okay. Where was it said that the US? Yeah, that's a good question. That story was everywhere. So let me go and find you the stories where this was first reported. Wonder who was the first one to jump on this story, actually. Was it Reuters? Oh, that's weird. What some of my my top sources for that sort of a thing are not working at the moment. Hold on a second. Well, I'm gonna go find it on Zero Hedge. I know that it was over there. So. That it's that difficult for me to find now kind of suggests to me that they're trying to bury the story again, huh? It was Saturday. That's the other thing, is this was like 2 days ago, so. $10-year so cheap, 10-year dumped like 40K contracts. Well, over the session, they've dumped a lot of contracts. I'll tell you that. I am going to not. I thought that I was going to take a trade here in the treasuries, but seeing that, you know, fuzziness between 4.6 and 4.59 kind of says to me that for the time being that we're probably not in a good spot for me to try and take a trade in the micros. So. The 15th, right? So the stories that we're looking for were on the 13th and 14th. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I think actually the source that I'm getting here is... Okay, Iran informed Turkey in advance of its operation against Israel. Iran informed Turkey in advance of its planned operation against Israel. Turkish diplomat source told Reuters on Sunday, adding that Washington had conveyed to Tehran via Ankara that any action it took had to be within certain limits. Turkey, which has denounced Israel for its campaign on Gaza, said earlier on Sunday that it did not want further escalation of tensions in the region. The Turkish source, speaking on condition of anonymity, said Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan had spoken to both his U.S. and Iranian counterparts in the past week to discuss the planned Iranian operation, adding Ankara had been made aware of possible developments. So that, I think, is kind of like the story that's really, they're really like, okay. I think there was another one. Because Uzi was saying Reuters. There was, I remember when I first saw this reported, there was two sources that seemed... But then, like, the bigger thing was that, like, last week, the U.S. was saying if they attack Israel, the United States will retaliate back with Israel. And then it happened, and the U.S. told Israel, like, don't strike back. We don't support strikes back now. So here's the thing right here. President Biden later made it clear during a call with Netanyahu that the United States will not be participating in any offensive against Iran. He also said that nothing of value was hit in Israel via the New York Post. President Biden told Israeli Prime Minister that nothing of value was hit in Iran's airborne attack Saturday and asserted American forces will not be participating in any offensive against Iran, according to a report. The president called Israel's defense during the attacks a win, telling Netanyahu that Israel's ability to intercept nearly all of the hundreds of missiles and drones showed its military superiority. Biden also made it clear that the U.S. would not be engaging in any military offensive against the Islamic Republic, the senior official told the channel. So is that sufficiently for a source? I think that it should be noted that part of this take that like it was all pre-planned theater, etc., is more of a like right-wing take on it. Okay. But I will link you. Here's the Jerusalem Post article. Yeah. I think when I was on r/conservative, there was a lot more about it. Yeah, there's the Candace Owens post, because Candace Owens was the one that was saying, oh, basically all this stuff that we saw this weekend was a theater. Yeah. Here's the PJ Media article about it. That's kind of where I think like the origin of the story on the conservative side. So I hesitate to post that one because they have their own color commentary of sorts, but I think it's kind of important to understand where people are getting this stuff from, right? Still seeing some pretty strong flows back and forth here in the 10-year. So I'm gonna just hold off here. It does look like that the dollar is a big driver at the moment. We'll see if they shift now. I kind of suspect that this will turn into nothing happened and the news will shift. Donald Trump was already out this morning with the leader of the House promoting a bill that would make it illegal or that would require verification of a person's citizenship before registering them to vote. Because there's been this whole thing where, like, obviously it's illegal for non-citizens to vote, but there's like a federal law that basically says that they cannot require proof of citizenship to register somebody. And so they're promoting the bill to fix that. That one's going to be weird because the Democrats are almost certainly going to oppose it. If Joe Biden might veto it, that would be, that would be kind of odd optics for them, wouldn't it? It's probably why they're doing it, but I think that the Republicans are probably going to hammer that narrative this week and just kind of like move on from the Now, on the whole, shouldn't the micro treasuries be a little bit higher? Well, they're like 3 ticks higher. But I would note that the 30-year is hurting a little bit more than the 10-year. And this 10-year micro treasury actually kind of behaves a little bit more like the 30-year than it does the 10 sometimes. Because this is like a 7 and this is a 10. Anyways, so now I wanted to go back because you were saying like the liberal white women and religious extremists are going to be the end of us. Can we repeal the 14th Amendment? Well, okay. I don't support any of that sort of stuff, okay? Wait, why are you bringing up the 14th Amendment in that particular case? Did you mean the 19th Amendment? Can we repeal the 19th Amendment? But I don't support repealing the 19th Amendment, okay? Here's the thing, in particular, because there's definitely a lot of this, like, okay, there's this group of people and this group of people, and they are voting in a way that we don't like, and that's super bad, right? Well, there is one thing which is like certain groups of people may have tendencies to vote in a certain way. So it may be the case, for instance, that women might be slightly more predisposed towards socialism and less concerned about security concerns, for instance. But I don't really think that that's the main driver of what's going on here. I think that we've created a situation where, because we're promising certain benefits and so forth, that women have an objective benefit from voting one way and men have a benefit from voting another way. And that's kind of clashing. I think that has more to do with what's going on. So really, the real problem here is politicians doing what's best for themselves, doing what they think will get them elected, and not necessarily what's best for the country. That's what's really going on here. And once you start doing that, then you inevitably start hitting large groups of people against each other. The good news is that, as we're kind of finding with the Democrat Party and minorities, and I think that you'll eventually find with the schism between men and women, eventually that kind of blows up in your face, right? Doesn't actually help you because then there's so much opposition. So I think that eventually that'll... It's not a good thing to disenfranchise voters. So, like, democracy works because everybody votes, and so the interests of the voters are going to be aligned with what gets you reelected, right? But if there is a problem with like a group voting one way or another, I think the only thing we can really do is just try and educate them better. Yeah, and when religious extremists are the suicidal idiots you're trying to please, you. It really does seem that, like, man. So first, are you saying liberal white women? Let's say liberal single women. Right? It's liberal single women that are voting for them in droves. People that I don't think that they ever want kids, to be honest with you. Like, I have one or two girls like that on my social media feeds, and I don't think they're ever going to have kids. And I got to tell you, man, having kids changes you. There's chemical changes, there's all these changes, and it makes you think differently. So, you know, when you see a schism between those people that are single and are married, that's definitely like something that raises a red flag for me. Doesn't say which way it should be or whatever. It just kind of says that something's wrong there that we should be fixing. Okay, uptick there. Fairly strong uptick as well, and I kind of saw some shift across the whole curve there when that happened as well. Meanwhile, oil looks like it's... Well, okay, it backed off. I was about to say it looked like oil was about to jump over the edge there, but like they set up like they were going to do it and then reversed. Oh, okay. There was one other thing that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to say about that. It's tough because not, you know, I don't agree with everything that people in chat say, and some of these issues are really complicated, and I don't have the time to like say everything that probably should be said to help people both understand the situation and you know, because if somebody says something like women shouldn't be able to vote, then that's definitely something that I kind of view as like, well, no, that's not. Here's why that's a bad thing, even if they don't vote the way that you want them to, right? But oh, by the way, also at ARPO, if you post a link, I won't see it. The YouTube censors it, like shadow censors it, so it looks to you like you posted the link, but nobody will see it. Anyways, Uzi's saying here, imagine bailing on our greatest ally because you're afraid that you're going to lose the Islamic fundamentalist extremist vote in Michigan. Well, but that's the big secret, right? Is that the Democrat Party are not actually allies to Israel whatsoever. The left would like to see the Israel basically go away. If they had their way, it would be like one big state, and Muslims would be the majority of that state. And then they would let them do whatever they want, right? The left is fundamentally, like based on its principles, opposed to a state that is there for the protection and benefits and interests of any one particular racial or ethnic group, right? So the left is also kind of opposed to the nation of Japan, because Japan is a nation that's built to support the interests of Japanese people, right? They would change that if they could as well. They think that Israel is a fascist state. They do. They say it's a fascist state. It's an ethno state and it's a conservative state. Ergo, it must be fascist. That's what they think. Try and convince me that the left's race politics has nothing to do with it? Well, it probably is a factor for some people as well. But I guess I'm saying you don't even have to go that far. Like, the reality is they just do not support the nation of Israel. And they never really actually did. Right? They just kind of pretended to, so that their Jew friends in the party wouldn't flip out and go conservative. And what's happening now with Joe Biden in charge is it's pretty hard to deny at this point, right? Because on the conservative side of things, how are the conservatives going to feel about this? Well, there's like the kabuki theater sort of side of it. But another thing that I think that they're going to say is this is really kind of appeasing Iran, right? This is continuing to the Obama-Biden policy of appease Iran, be nice to Iran, and maybe they will not, they will stop being so awful. We've seen, the conservative side, and I'm conservative, so I would make the argument that we've kind of seen what comes from that. It's like you appease Iran, and then they continue to do crazy things. Like if you give them money, then they just turn around and use that money for terrorism. They are an ideologically based regime that is dedicated to the destruction of Israel and, the spread of Islam across the whole world. And not just Islam, but their extreme form of Islam, right? And so this is kind of like helps Iran and, is not supporting Israel. And in the long run, probably comes back and bites us in the butt. The big question for me is, what do they have to benefit from appeasing Iran? It's a case of big brainers thinking they can placate religious fundamentalists. Islam is not Christianity. Christianity you can make into anything you want. It's weak and malleable. Islam is the complete opposite. Yep, it is. It is like one of the things that I find really fascinating, actually, dude. Dune totally got this right. Yeah. I mean, when you want to talk about the politics of Dune, it's pretty crazy. Because remember when Dune came out and there's all these people saying like it's a white savior story, and then everybody's like, no, you don't understand Dune at all because it's not a white savior story. And the second side is kind of right, but they're also kind of wrong. Well, because if you really look at what he's saying is actually even worse. So it's not a white savior story. He basically took the story of Lawrence of Arabia, and he kind of felt that didn't really get the point across, and so he kind of, because Lawrence of Arabia is technically not a white savior story either. Like it starts out like a white savior story, and then he realizes that by being a white savior, that it actually hurt the people that he was being a savior to, right? That's Lawrence of Arabia. The same sort of a thing is happening in Dune, but in Dune, the hero, Paul, he basically realizes from being able to see the future that they've created this religious cult that is going to practice jihad across the galaxy no matter what. And so he's like, okay, I guess I will be the one to do it. Right? So he's kind of saying the same thing, that, it's not a white savior story. Like all of these things, this savior trope was designed to enslave the indigenous people, but it's also not saying a good thing about those indigenous people or about Islam. I mean, because they're basically Islam, but I think that his kind of take about how people and religions work, it very much matches what I understand about the people's psychology and the psychology of groups and all of this sort of a thing. And yeah, like this, there's kind of this thinking that like Western civilization and Islam are not necessarily fundamentally incompatible. Is just the religious extremists in Islam that we have to worry about, and if we can kind of marginalize those and bring more people into the kind of more moderate kind of Islam, that we can coexist and get all along. And I just don't think that that's the case. I think that the case is that the way that Islam is its very nature is to become extremist. Like it leads towards extremism. And you got to realize that like culture and religion and so forth are actually, like, to some extent, evolutionary innovations that humans have created that help and aid their survival, right? Like these groups are intended to conquer everything else so that there's no threats to your group. That's how it goes, Well, it's not extremism. A Muslim is following the Quran to the dot. They would become these. Well, yes. Well, there are moderate sections of Islam. Okay. In fact, I would argue that the majority of the Muslim world is quite moderate and more moderate in their belief than most Christians are, actually. But you have this segment that's Iran and that whole crescent that is extremely extremist. And those people are kind of like following the religion to what it says. Yes. Because the Quran does kind of say, like, you know, try and convert everybody, and everybody that doesn't convert, kill them. It does say that. Oh, doesn't that have nothing to do with white guilt? You've got to understand, like, what the situation on the ground actually is. And the situation on the ground, when it comes to the world of Islam, is not what we're told. Because everything that we see in U.S. media is Iran and Hamas, okay? But what you're not seeing is that Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan are all want to be friends with Israel now at this point. They want to normalize relationships with Israel. The Jordanians shot down most of those drones, right? So, like, most of the Muslim world is not the extreme that we typically see in the United States. Even though there is still, I think, this fundamental tendency within the religion to go towards, right? Like, it is there. And I do think that it's fundamentally incompatible with Western society and ideals like freedom of speech and things like this, right? Nubia found your YouTube over the weekend. Hey, thank you. This comes in and we're all talking politics now and not the market. I'm sorry. But it's relevant today because lots happened over the weekend. What can I say? Well, no, the point was that most of them are not fundamentalists. Most of them are not. Like, you kind of have to be a little bit strategic about this, right? Because it's a little crazy to think, okay, Islam is a problematic religion, ergo we should eradicate it from this planet. Okay, that's not going to happen. So how do you deal with where it is? And I think that who understands this the best are the Muslims themselves. Because you go to Saudi Arabia and they're telling us this, right? They're straight up telling us, like, hey, look, like, I'm a moderate and I would like to get along with Western society and I don't necessarily want to, like, kill everybody, okay? But there are people in my country or in my part of the world that do. And here's how we deal with them, and here's how you have to deal with them. And we ignore them. That's the crazy thing, is that we ignore them. But they know what to do. And part, I think, of the solution here is to understand that most of them are not the extremists and can be your ally in dealing with the extremists. That's why I think it's important to point out that most of them are not fundamentalists. Extremists is not, I am using them interchangeably here in my vernacular, aren't I? Right? Because basically their approach is to marginalize the extremists. Like they're basically like, well, we can't really get rid of them because like it is inherent in the religion, but we can marginalize them and prevent them from really doing a whole lot. That's their approach, at least. What are you trading today? Well, so most of the time I am taking trades in the micro treasury yield futures. We had a move here, and I thought maybe I was going to participate today. I usually don't like to participate on a Monday, but I knew that stuff was coming through. And then, of course, there was the retail sales, which was much higher than expected and really crushed the treasuries. But when that happened, the liquidity over here in the instrument that I like to trade, the micro treasury yield futures, looked a little bit suspect. So I am kind of sitting on it and just watching what they do. Maybe, because the thing is maybe I could go long yield, short treasury, basically, and get like $10. But like, is the risk reward and all of that and the probability of me getting it really worth it here at this point? I'm kind of a little bit unsure. I don't like some of the liquidity conditions that I'm seeing here. Like, I don't like that, for instance, they just ticked up 2 ticks that quickly. Now, I think that going into all of that, the reason that we had kind of gotten into that conversation, and I would want to go back to that, is trying to understand why the left behaves the way that it does, right? And I think that the left is opposed to the idea of the nation of Israel, is kind of is an ideological thing. Okay, I think that they think it's a fascist state, right? It's an ethno state and it's a conservative state, ergo it must be fascist. That's what they think, and that's why they're opposed to it. But I don't think that is a sufficient explanation for everything that they do, right? I think some of the things that you will see the left do, and it goes both ways. We could maybe talk about ways in which the conservatives do this, okay? But some of what the left does is just kind of knee-jerk counter reaction. It really is. Like a lot of their support for the Muslim world is because George Bush was, we're going to go into Iraq, we're going to go into Afghanistan, the war on terror. And so they developed this whole framework of, oh, well, actually what they're doing is they're colonizers oppressing indigenous populations is really what they're actually doing. And then they kind of took on this, like, Islam is good and supporting Islam in a way that just makes no sense, because for the most part, Islam is directly opposed to what I would consider liberal ideals. So why would they support the religion? Well, they've kind of fooled themselves, right? Because people are tribal. And if your tribe is the Democrat Party and the enemy is the Republicans, and the Republicans are all going after the terrorists, and maybe the terrorists must not be so bad. And I think that's just kind of the way that humans tend to think because of tribalism. And so it can result in these sorts of really bizarre and I think that this larger hatred of white people, if we could call it that, because that is a thing in the Democrat Party as well. I think that is a part of it too. I think that's a part of it too. Or rather, that same kind of phenomenon is why the left tends to hate white people. And it's weird, don't you think? Isn't it weird how that political identity trumps people's ethnic identity in the modern world, to the point where you get all these liberals that are like self-hating white liberals? Super weird stuff, man. But white people tend to hate themselves as just more prominent on the left. Maybe. So going back to Dune. So this is the thing that drives me nuts about people's reaction to Dune. Because after Dune 2 came out, the whole online discussion argument was, oh, you guys are all acting like Paul is a hero, but he's not actually a hero. This was what was actually meant, and this is what the author meant, right? Part of that is that the author didn't do a very good job of presenting the message that he wanted. Okay. But I think that the message actually here is that we're the bad guys, right? Like in Dune, you are meant to sympathize with the Fremen. Like we, collectively, humanity as a whole, we are the Fremen. And we, humanity as a whole, collectively, have this tendency to create these religious cults and latch on to one charismatic leader and then let that one charismatic leader lead us towards destroying everything. And so the whole thing in Dune, if you keep reading the books, the whole thing is that basically humanity has to be put under a hard dictator that is just so awful, and everybody remembers it, that it was so awful that they prevent it from ever happening again. That was basically the whole thing. Was like, in order for humanity to survive, this tendency in humanity has to be eradicated. And the way that we do that is by letting it happen and showing the world how awful it is so that we decide for it to never happen again. Right? That's what they're saying, I think. Can we pull ourselves out from the tribalism and kind of see the world for what it really is and like make good decisions based off of that instead of tribalism? I'm not sure we can, but that would probably be the thing that's good for the world. Okay, call anybody that's not white a racist and they take it on the chin, but for us it's the worst thing that can happen. Or no. I miss trading. Have you not taken any trades on Steffa? I really wanted to come in and take trades today, and I'm kind of sitting here worried. You know what, to be honest, Ninja Trader changed the demo. Wait, they changed the demo access. What do you mean by that? Like you can't get free demo access from them anymore? Oh, you're too busy with college. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're in school, you should probably focus on that first, right? This is the tough thing, because I would love to have more young people in my audience and everything, but I think the reality is that the kind of person that, you know, retail day trading makes sense for is, you know, a middle-aged man that's already had a decent amount of success and is very financially secure, right? So you're talking about somebody that's between the ages of 35 and 45 and had a tech job or whatever. That's me. So I guess the ideal person is me, but has anyone had experience with as Starry's medic? Never heard of it. Yeah, that's a weird thing to ask us. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. I think that something that happened to millennials was, I remember in school them spending a lot of time talking about both racism in the South and the Holocaust, right? And you know, teaching very strongly like, this was what happened. This was what happened in the previous generation. Let's never let it happen again. And that was really ingrained into our heads. And so I kind of feel like we were conditioned to see an issue, you know? And the issue was that the issue was that, you know, be concerned about racism and holocausts, right? Okay. But the problem with all of that is that the world has gotten a lot better in the last 100 years. And so those are not problems nearly to the extent that they were in the past. And so the human brain is kind of weird and kind of is always on the lookout for problems. And when we don't have problems, we invent them. And so I do kind of feel like that this, let's call it racial tension of the last 5 to 10 years in the United States is kind of a creation of our own minds. Like something that didn't actually have to be a problem. Like we made it into an issue by our own insecurity. Because nobody really, I feel that almost everybody in the United States believes that it's wrong to discriminate against somebody based on race. Of course, the number of people that think it's okay have increased because there are people out there supporting like full-on anti-white bias, but okay, Mr. Legit asks a good question here. Hold on. There are a lot of young people trading and they learn from... Yeah, that is unfortunate. You're right. Hold on, wait. For us in Florida, middle school was American history and heavily centered on the Civil War and slavery. High school, we went into world history and it's heavily centered on World War II and the Holocaust. Yes, exactly. Well, so for me, I took AP European history and... I actually at the time felt like not as much time was spent on World War II as could have been. was actually they spent a lot more time in the kind of religious wars time period, which is interesting. But okay, Mr. Legit asks a good question. Is there a reason why almost every futures contract has different tick values? Like why the E-mini is 1250 and the UB is like 3125. What determines these tick values? Okay, so the thing to understand is that the primary user of futures are hedgers. You got to understand, because almost everything else kind of follows from that, okay? So like, if I'm growing wheat, then I'm going to grow like 5,000 bushels, and I'm going to sell them in bushels of 5,000, and then I'm going to sell. So like the instrument is sized so that I, the farmer, can buy the correct number of contracts to hedge my crop, right? And so the tick size of it has to be as such that it will offset my losses from having to sell the things and all of that, right? And the sizes have to be appropriate so that they are granular enough for it to work for most of the people that need to hedge that, right? And so those things all determine stuff like the contract size and all of this and that. Now, it gets a little bit more weird when you get into treasuries and equities, because those are not like pure commodities like corn and wheat and gold and all of that sort of stuff, right? But like the same kind of principles still apply. Like in the treasuries, right? The most amount of the volume are hedging, are people that own treasuries and come and sell the futures to hedge themselves, essentially. And then they make the difference from the basis. Right now, those people are doing it more because it's kind of a trade, but the basis trade is very popular in the treasuries. Okay, and you got to realize that, like, okay, if the interest rates change 0.25%, 25 basis points, right? Because that's the Federal Reserve tends to move things in 25 basis point increments, right? Okay. Well, if I have a 1-year bond, okay, then that means that I'm going to make that 25 basis points. So like, let's say we're like 5.25, 5.5. Let's just say that it went to 6. Let's just say that it went to 6. Okay. So if I buy a 1-year bond and it's giving me a 6% interest rate, then that means that I should get 2 payments that are equal to 6%, right? So I'll get one payment at the beginning of the year that's $3,000, and then get another one halfway through the year that's $3,000, right? Okay. So the ultimate value of that 1-year bond is $6,000 more, right? You would buy it for $100,000 and then it would, but it's actually worth $106,000, right? Okay, well, but what if it was a 2-year? The end value of that 2-year is actually twice that. It's actually 112,000 because there's 2 years, right? Okay, so the value of a bond fluctuates more because of a change in short-term interest rates. It's like a whip, right? As you go down the curve, like those changes just become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Okay. And so because of that, you need the different treasury instruments to be sized differently. Otherwise, this one would always just be so wild that you couldn't do any of these like spreads and stuff like that. So that's why like UB and ZB and ZN all have slightly different tick values. Right? And the S&P 500, when they originally created that, the tick size and everything was based on, I'm the big portfolio manager and I want to hedge myself against a recession. How many contracts would I, how big do those portfolios tend to be and how can we size things for those people? It started that way. It's kind of changed over the years and because the S&P 500 is so expensive relative to where it was. But anyways. So kind of a combination of it's for hedgers and a combination of that's just the history. Right? My contact is not rotating correctly here. So if I'm like looking around and look weird, it's because my vision is kind of off there. I think that the contact recentered. Is a component of leverage and volatility too. The most volatile products usually have the less tick value, like the NASDAQ. Oh, well, yes. I think there's part of this is like we're going to provide an instrument that kind of fits everybody's personality, and like the CME from the CME's perspective, these are all products that have a particular target audience, and they're trying to attract as many people to come and trade on their exchange as possible, right? As a hedger, you don't want to short 1 million worth of ES to hedge against a $1 million portfolio, paying less for the futures contracts and being exposed to moves is a win. Well, yes. So the way that you do it is you say, okay, let's say that we want to hedge 1 MM. MM, by the way, is just an abbreviation for million. Because, like, how do I know that I'm talking about that it's $1 million and not a meter? They use MM, okay? Not millimeters, I don't know. Is it millimeters MM? I don't know. Anyways, it means a million. Okay, so I'm going to hedge $1 million. How many contracts should I buy? Well, let's go and look up the instrument value. CME Group. .com. I guess I will start at the front page so that you can kind of know how to do this stuff yourself. So now I'm going to come in here, markets, equity index, S&P 500. Okay, so there's all of this stuff, and one of the tabs here is specs. Okay, so the contract unit is 50 times the index. Right? So the index is, wait, where's my calculator? Okay, so how much is a contract worth? 52.05, because that's what the price is right now, times $50 is 260,250. Okay, so if my portfolio was $1 million, then I'm going to say $1 million divided by 260, 250 equals 3.84 contracts. And if you're doing the Series 3 exam, you ran down. So we would, to hedge a $1 million portfolio, we would buy or sell 3 E-mini contracts. And that's how you do it. Right? Because you're hedging against the notional value of it, right? People think, okay, I have $1 million, so then does that mean that I buy as many E-mini contracts as I can until I get to I'm using $1 million in margin? No, because you do that and you blow up like within a day. You hedge against the notional value of the contract. And this is where, like, again, I say, you keep in mind that it's built for hedgers. Because for you as a day trader, then all of that stuff, like how much is a single contract worth and everything, it doesn't matter. That's the information that's initially presented to you. Okay, but that's because it's for hedgers. For you, what do you care about? You care about volatility. You care about how much money am I going to make or lose on an individual day. So how do you go about doing that? Well, so let's go back. Let's just remember that it's $50 for a point. So that's $12.50 per tick. Okay? $12.50 per tick. Let's make a new chart. The S&P 500. ES. And let's do it on a daily chart. Okay, one day we'll add a year. Okay, so here's the S&P 500. Okay. Now there's this indicator called average true range. Comes with NinjaTrader. This is ATR. I have a slightly modified version of ATR. And what my version of ATR, this multi-ATR, allows me to do is change it. Because normally, like the ATR that you get, it's based on like the size of the instrument. So like if you come over here and it says 20, then that means that the S&P 500 tends to move 20 points a day, which for us, again, maybe doesn't necessarily make sense. I think the thing that makes the most sense and is the easiest thing to work with as retail day traders in futures is ticks. So I'm going to change this from points to ticks. Okay, and I'm going to do the 14-day period because that is as tradition. Okay, so what is it telling me? It's telling me that the S&P 500 tends to move 248 ticks a day. How much money is that? So let's go in and do the math, right? 248 times 12.5 equals $3,000 a day. Oh, that's a lot, actually. That's a lot, actually. So probably I don't want to trade an ES contract, do I? Like if I want to hold it all day and I don't want to lose $3,000, then I probably need to trade something else, right? So then they have the micros, which is divided by 10. Okay, so then, you know, the range of a day, average day, is $300 if you cut the whole range, right? Now, for day trading, you probably catch a small part of that. Like let's say 5%. 15.5. Meh. Let's say anywhere between 5 and 20% of the range is what you'll tend to get, right? So if you're coming in and you're saying like, how much could I practically make in a day? What I would do is I would say, let's use 20%. So 248 times 0.2 times 2.5 because we're trading micros, $124 a day. So trading micros with one contract, maybe you could make $124 a day. Maybe. Could be hard. That would be kind of like, that would be like you're a spectacular trader if you catch that every day is 20%, right? 10% is kind of more average. $62. But that's like you make or lose that much in a day. So then you'd kind of have to sort out your overall win rate and figure out. Okay. But that's how you kind of figure out, okay, like, what's realistic for me. Let's come and do it on the 10-year. 10 YR. Now on micro treasury yield futures, it's a little bit easier because a tick is $1. Tick is $1. Did I just close my calculator? Good freaking grief. Also, while I'm thinking about it, also, why is my, oh, that's interesting. It must have been a new version of Rhythmic Trader. So, there we go. Calculator. Okay, so the average true range on the micro treasuries is 93. 93 ticks, which would be $93. Times, we'll do the average, right? 0.2 was like higher end of what you'd get. So if I do times 0.1, about $10. And hence, my goal on an individual trade is to make $10. Between $10 and $20. And that's how I sort out what I can make or lose on one contract. On one contract, right? So I'm determining like my stops and targets based on the amount of volatility in the instrument. How was World War III canceled? Because we thought that Iran attacking Israel could be an event that could trigger World War III. And instead, they kind of pulled a sort of a behind-the-scenes diplomat ploy where Iran was able to attack and save face, but not do any damage, and then convince the Israelis to not strike back so that the situation was diffused. That's why the treasuries come back so far today. What is that, Salim? That's the way that Salim tends to come in and talk. So linear algebra. This is relevant to trading. So if you have more questions about that, about what I just said about volatility and everything, you ask that and I'll come back to it, okay? Linear algebra is like this. You have some sort of y equals a times x1 plus b times x2 plus c times x3. Okay. What are the values of x1, x2, x3 to equal y? And what we can do is we can say, so to solve that, you can't really solve that. But if you have multiple equations, if you have also y equals ax4, or actually we should say dx4 e x5 f x6, right? We can kind of, if we know, like, if A, B, and C are actual numbers that we know, then we can basically solve these values in here. It's called linear algebra. And what you do is you take the derivatives of them all, and then, you can kind of like do matrix math. Like, you ever remember when you were in grade school where they have like something like y equals a plus bx, and then y also equals c, and so you can like do this math and all these sorts of things to substitute this into this. Or maybe it's like you say x equals c, so then you can say, oh, okay, so then, right. Basically, it's all these sort of tricks like that. But we have found that you can kind of simplify it all down into this matrix math. So you could do this matrix math, and then you can solve these giant equations. And because you're using a computer, you can do like hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of variables. For instance, what if you wanted to rank websites and you said the rank of this website is based on what links to my website? Okay, so I have this website and it's linked to by all of these other websites. Okay, so my rank is dependent on the rank of the websites that link to me. But what is the value of those websites? Well, it's the same thing. And so how do you actually figure that out? And so what they do is they put it into one of these equations where they say, okay, these ABC are the websites that are linking to me, right? And I get it all into this big matrix thing, and then I can solve for the values of all of the different websites that I have to get their rank. And that is how Google works. That was the innovation that made Google win the browser war back in the 90s. So that's linear algebra. And so you can also use linear algebra in econometrics and trading and so forth. There are some situations where, you know, you can do all of that sort of math and solve for multiple values. Your favorite market is surprisingly slow today? Oh, the ES? Well, ES has been open for 15 minutes and it is surprisingly tight. Now in the Treasury, it seems like things have gone a little bit lower. So when I was coming over here, we were at 4.6 and I was like, I could maybe make $10, but like, look, it's gone 30. So that's a pretty big move in the Treasury. I'm a little bit nervous about selling it here now at this point, like, because I'm too worried about how far it may come back. Can you comment on Quant of the Year, Jean-Philippe Bouchot? Well, I can't see your link, but I do remember him receiving an award of that. He knows his stuff. What can I say? It's when you see how accomplished this guy is, it's pretty wild that most retail traders don't know about him. Because in our space, well, I would say he's kind of more in the CTA space, whereas what we're doing is scalping, right? But in the CTA space, he is the leader in the space right now, I think. CTA meaning commodities trading advisors. So these tend to be momentum strategies, right? So it's because he's not trading ICT, right? I'm watching this a little bit more carefully. I'm curious to see if they're able to push much lower or if they reverse a little bit here. When did they start turning back down, by the way? When I look at like my volumes and everything, it's kind of looking like the other day where the 30-year is kind of driving it, and so it's a little bit hard for me to see it coming. Because I'm not seeing the flow to short side in ZN, but it's happening in CP. Skin in the game is good. Well, I think that Nassim Taleb has a lot of good stuff. Skin in the game is the one that's a little bit controversial, though, right? Sure is on the edge there, ain't it? How is it controversial? Well, because what skin in the game is essentially saying is that people that lose should be removed from the game. So, like, if you are an analyst and you come in and you make predictions about something, and then your prediction is wrong, that the thing that would be best for the market is that you're no longer an analyst. So do you want to live in that world where if you're an analyst and you say something that's incorrect, that you're no longer an analyst and that your livelihood is destroyed? Right? I see traders will do anything but trading. Selling prop firms to selling courses. Well, so I tell you what, it is astounding to see how many, like, it's its own cottage industry now at this point, right? Like, there are influencers that all they do is talk about ICT stuff, and then yes, they are very much trying to drive people to the prop firms and this and that. Look, trading is super hard, okay? And I don't think that there's anything wrong with somebody being like a part of the ecosystem, okay? But I think that there is a right and a wrong way to do this, right? Like, I do not support the prop firms in that respect anymore, because I feel that when you start taking commissions from the prop firms, that your incentive is to try and get as many people to do a combine as possible when it's not really appropriate for them, right? Whereas I feel much better about software. I feel that, hey, look, this is software. It does what it's supposed to do, and I can explain to you what it does so that you can decide whether it's appropriate for you. And then if it is appropriate for you, then you buy it and I get a commission. Okay, that is like traditional sales, right? Or I make my own software and I sell my own software because I do have some things that are very valuable. I don't understand how people trade without them. I really do not understand how people trade without the dollar index. How are you trading, especially these commodities, without understanding how the value of money is changing at that time? It's just, you see how that would maybe be an important component into your trading, right? It does what it says, right? Now, I think that what people would prefer to see, though, is that a person on YouTube only makes money from trading, right? But if that was what you were going to do, then you wouldn't be on YouTube, right? Now, I didn't come into this thinking, oh, I'm going to make this big YouTube channel and I'm going to make it super successful and try and make money from it. And granted, you know, the amount of money that it makes is trivial, but I digress. I do make a little bit of money from it. This kind of started as a personal blog to record my stuff, and then people watched it. So we just kept going, and it's kind of become its own thing. It didn't set out with that goal in the first place to do that, right? But retail day trading is super hard. You understand that. I really like people's expectation of what you're supposed to get from like a day trading influencer or whatever, and the reality are like so far apart. Like, most of the time, if you're a really good day trader, you're probably going to tread water most of the time and then make, you know, most of your success coming from like one or two really big trades a year. That's kind of a more common successful day trader story. But people want you to come in and make money every day. Well, if you're looking for somebody that comes in and makes money every day, that's most likely to lead you to charlatans, because what they do is they set up these setups that make them appear to be profitable most of the time, and then when they blow their account, they don't say anything about it, and the audience doesn't notice. That's what happens. And that's, ICT is pretty heavily geared towards that, to giving you a high win rate, even though it's not a profitable strategy long term. Because people only care about what did I make today or what did I make this week, and they don't look at what do you make over 5 years. Yeah, now ICT, there is another level to ICT himself. And that is that ICT is a narcissist, in my opinion. I'm not a psychological professional or whatever we call it, but I think that he meets all of the qualifications of a narcissist. By the way, you notice the narcissists will always go for the high win rate strategy. Always. Narcissist can't come in and handle losing most of the time. it just absolutely destroys them. They can't stand it. And that's usually how it starts for them, right? So they're a narcissist, they're trading. And because they're a narcissist, they want everybody to see them trading. And then they start to shift into, okay, I need to have a strategy where I win most of the time. So they just kind of naturally are drawn into those kinds of strategies. And then they blow up. The strategy stops working, something happens or whatever. And then at that point, because again, they're the narcissist, they have to say, well, I can't let anybody know that that's what happened, right? And so then they start faking results and like the whole thing becomes a big giant scam. I trade. Sometimes I make money and sometimes I don't. I make absolutely no claims about profitability. I'll show you what my results have been over the recent past. I lost 3 times on Friday. It sucked. Well, they were all small losses. It's okay. But it was like $30. I'm still mad about it. I think I'm maybe a little bit shell-shocked because I think I probably could have traded this and I was just too worried about it. Yeah. It is what it is. You know. But that's why you see these things go the way that they do. It's kind of weird, you know, a YouTube influencer, a YouTube trader telling you, don't go to YouTube to learn trading, right? What's different about me? Well, because I'm not saying, hey, follow Seth's trading and because he's been successful and so you'll be successful too. No. What I'm saying is go and listen to Seth because Seth will share empirical evidence to you. Things that you can prove based on data from the market that are well established in their studies and peer review and all things that we actually understand. And you would think that for that sort of thing, that it would be stuff that everybody knows, but nobody in the retail trader community seems to know about this stuff. So I teach you that stuff. Can you make money from it? That's up to you. But at least you know that the information that you're consuming is evidence backed. If we make a profit and earn a lot of money within 5 years, why do we need to sell our strategy? Well, I don't know if you necessarily would want to sell your strategy to others, right? If you have certain, if you meet certain benchmarks and there's certain qualities about your strategy, it might be more lucrative for you to start a fund with it. Okay. The Robbins Trading Cup. I really don't like that whole thing. Like, that's always kind of been around and has always kind of been, like, feel like, well, yeah, but it's a trading contest. So, and now all of the sudden, because of ICT and all of that, like, everybody is focused on it. But, like, here again, like, if you go and you say, okay, whoever wins the Robbins Cup, that's going to be the influencer that I'm going to follow. I'm telling you, you're likely to be drawn into a charlatan or somebody that's naive, because the person that performs the best usually got lucky. When you have that kind of outperformance, is usually like, it's extremely rare that you get somebody like Renaissance Capital that performs the top for years or decades. Usually, this year's biggest winner will be next year's biggest loser. So I don't think you'll ever see me do something like the Robbins Cup, simply because I don't think that winning says anything. But I guess it comes down to, what is your goal? Because if your goal is how much money can I make in a year, or how much money can I make over 2 years, then go ahead and do those things. Like if all you care about is how much money you make right now, then do the degenerate stuff where you have like a huge stop and you just take tons of tiny little scalps and stuff. If your goal is, one, be the most profitable that I can over a 5-year period, and two, understand the market as well as possible, then your approach is completely different, right? Then those kinds of strategies, they don't help you, because if you blow up, then you've accomplished nothing. And that's my goal. That's my goal. Understand the market as well as possible and have the best performance over a 5-year time period. Do I have a 5-year track record of profitability? No. We kind of changed things. I'd say that we're on year 3 of this. And year 1, we weren't profitable. Year 2, we were. And year 3, we weren't. So it was still a work in progress. Passive investors who invest in index funds are outperforming 100%. Well, I wouldn't say that. So if you decide to manage a small portfolio of stocks, like let's say you pick 5 stocks and they're like buy and hold, unless something really crazy happens and you just really don't like that company anymore, or there's like changes in the macroeconomic framework, and so like you've been long oil, but now you think that oil and commodities are going to do poorly over the next 10 years or so, you know. But other than that, you're in these for the long haul, and your average holding time is several years and so forth, right? There's actually a really good chance that you outperform the market. You're about just as likely to outperform the market as you are to underperform the market. And the thing is like if the market, it gets 7% a year, right? And you underperform it and you get 5% that year, is that like really, are you really, you know, crushed? Because you know, you lost 2% or you missed out on 2%. Yeah, but on the other side, if you win, you can like 10x your money. So the risk reward profile in that kind of situation, I think actually really, really favors managing your own portfolio. The only issue is that the risk to this is, you know, if you need that money to retire and you need a certain yield in order to be able to retire, then that's a problem. So just don't do that with the money that you need to retire. Put away the money that you need to retire into an index fund. And then once you're fully funding what you need for retirement, then start your mad money portfolio where you can take risks. Because the risk reward profile for buying and holding stocks is really, really favorable. The risk reward profile for day trading, not very good. Not very good. So really, you should only do it if you just love the market. You want to be involved. That's the advantage of day trading, is you get involved. It can help your buy and hold because you'll know more about the market. But will you make money from day trading? Probably not. But I do firmly believe that to give you the best chance, that you should have evidence-backed information. And this is the only place on YouTube that you can find it. It shouldn't be that way. There should be somebody else that's teaching this kind of information, steals it from me, essentially. Well, they wouldn't be stealing it from me because, again, it comes from studies and so forth. But nobody else on YouTube is talking about this. I feel like that by this point, somebody should have started talking about it and like become super popular from it. And then I would be really crushed and everything, right? But it hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened yet. Have 2 portfolios, 1 long, 1 short, and submit the winner? Yes, but then they would know that that's what you did, right? Because the whole thing with the Robbins Cup is that you have to, like, be trading real money and verify all of the trades with them and stuff. That will never happen. Maybe. Right back to the bottom, but a lot of volume trading at 24.5 and 25. So that is not necessarily indicative of something that's gonna like careen lower. That is more indicative of a liquidity hole and something that's kind of rotate around that price. Like even if we do move lower, there's going to be a higher probability for them to get sucked back up into 25. Informative traders are never going to teach anymore. Well, I don't know if I agree with that, because retail traders are at such a disadvantage against the robots that you essentially are forced to have to gang up. You're forced to have to collaborate to even stand a chance. And, that's one of the primary drivers behind me sharing this information, is that I need to get more traders that are up to speed with what we already know, what's already proven, so that we can collectively search and find new edges. And so I kind of teach with the idea that, my pupils will eventually find things and bring them back to me, and that happens. And a lot of my successes come from that. Or, people here on the stream sharing information, news headlines, and that sort of a thing, right? We're collaborating, we're working together to try and gain an edge through working together. But in order to work together, I've got to get everybody out to a certain level, right? That's what our education is about. Okay, so we are getting some more flows short. This one is actually having quite a decent amount of volume behind it in ZN. Again, I'm a little bit wary about this because there is probably going to be this tendency for them to get sucked back up here. They're doing it again at 24, though. Let's see how much they trade at 24. So I don't think it would take very long for them to get over the 28,000 that would be required to take over as the point of control or whatever. Well, the point of control is at 72,000. If you knew crude is going to go up or down, you are not going to share that. That is your edge. Well, I do though. So, what I do is I come in here and I tell you, here are the flows I know about, right? And I have that on here. Okay, retail sales was hot. I just need to reset that. New York Fed manufacturing was worse than expected. Fed's Williams was speaking on Bloomberg. Today is tax day. We are in a buyback blackout period that tends to be negative for stocks. We're getting a flight to safety is unwinding. CTAs are short around 50-80. We also have positioning in oil where all of the funds are heavily short. And we have a 6-year auction today. So these are all things, well, you say that these are past, but these are all flows that are coming through the market today at this very time. And so just based off of those flows, and I usually don't say this part, okay? I want you to figure this part out on your own. But if you were to ask me, my takeoff of all of this would be short treasuries, short oil, and short ES, which is a little bit of an unusual configuration usually, because if treasuries are going down, then equities tend to go up. But I'm saying because of tax day and the blackout period, that's relatively bad for equities. So I think equities will be a mildly bad day. Treasuries will be the sell. And oil is going to be a down day because of the flight to safety unwinding. And all of the funds heavily short oil. So, when oil starts heading down, there's certain points at which it will probably accelerate a little bit because these guys keep making money. Right? And these are all flows that will take all day to come through. Wow, they really blew through that 24 actually. Wowzer. Well, I think it's already way too late for me to try and take a position. I guess when it first started falling, I should have tried to get in there. Well, my read on that one was dead wrong, don't you think? How to see that the funds are short oil. So Zero Hedge posted a report that came from Goldman Sachs where they kind of talk about that positioning. And that's where I got that from. There's 10K at 21.5 now too. Jeez. Octavia said, oh, I didn't catch that you thought we were in the third leg. I think that is exactly what happened. If we were in the third leg of a meta order, it was a risky one, right? It was one where the first leg was small, the second leg was a little bit more, and then the third leg was half of it. Because the flow short in the 10-year is massive compared to everything else today. But I am also thinking that there might be a news headline that we haven't caught yet, because that was pushing down a little bit too aggressively. Also, I'm seeing that big stack at 21. In this situation, that's always worth being a little suspicious about. So those tend to show up when you're having really strong downtrends, but they also have a tendency to pull and create reversals. So I'm a little wary about those. I'm not going to say that that's enough to take a trade like on a reversal. Okay. I think that the better trade is probably still short, but that once I see one of those, I go, okay, I'm not going to touch it. So it could be that the treasuries kind of failing those levels just as having cascading effects and is thus affecting equities and oil and everything else. But the way that the treasuries kind of turned there kind of says to me that it could be either or. It could be that the treasuries are just getting stop outs and stuff, but it could be that there is a news catalyst out there. High probability of there being a news catalyst. We don't have one yet, so I'm not saying that it's not possible to have happened without a news catalyst, but there's really good chance. Okay, Forex Live reports Israel reserves its right to self-defense after attack. Why would that be a sell treasuries though? I don't think that story could be it. This is where Discord can be really useful. This one is that whole sequence of events was a little bit weird. Wow. Like that really went too. Like, remember we were saying, okay, 20, what was it? 25. And then we got down to 24 and I was like, well, but it's doing it again. And then it very, very quickly came all the way down there. That was only a matter of minutes. That was way faster than things tend to go. I don't like the reversal trades, but that one was so excessive that there's probably going to be a decent reversal. I don't know if they would make it all the way back up here to 25, but maybe at least to the 23 area. Well, and I'm not feeling, and another thing is that my gut's still kind of bothering me. So maybe I should be a little bit more cautious, but let's try it on a sim account, okay? I'll try it right here. Okay. Kind of looking like it'd be very difficult to get filled at 18.5. Got a good spot in the queue at 19 though. I'll leave that one. Okay. Okay. So they are kind of experiencing that kind of lift where it's like, even though they're still selling, it's easier for it to move up because there's just like no liquidity above them. There's plenty of liquidity down below them. Home builder confidence holds steady in April. I would like to hear more about the Goldman Sachs earnings call. How are they doing? Because when JP Morgan went, it was not very good. And so you got to be concerned about all of the banks from that. Goldman Sachs Group, we'll change it to a 1-minute chart. Ah, looks like they are up overnight. Very good. Excellent. How do I get rid of this? Get rid of that. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so let's come over to Zero Hedge and see. Oh, did I get the fill there again? What was it, 20? That actually did not. No, it was at 19.5, wasn't it? Okay, let me double check. Build 19.5. I'll take 20.5 again. Aluminum and nickel soar and then slide after Western sanctions on Russian metals. We don't got anything here for Goldman. Let's go to CNBC. Oh, here it is right there. This is like staring me in the face. Goldman Sachs on Monday posted first quarter profit and revenue that topped analysts' expectations, fueled by a surge in trading and investment banking revenue. That's what I was hoping to see. But that doesn't necessarily, when it's like a surge in trading and so forth, that doesn't necessarily say that like they've solved all of their problems per se, right? Okay, so I've been able to build up a pretty good position here in this area. I'm a little bit weary about if that 19.5 fails again, though. I don't know if I want that second contract, so I'm going to just hold off here now and hope that we get to the 23. Bank said profit jumped 28%. Thanks to a rebound in capital markets activities. Fixed income trading revenue rose 10%. This trade is like working way better than I thought it would. Watch them come like one tick short of the 23. If I think that it's going to come one tick short of the 23, then maybe I should put my order at 22.5. But then if I move it to 22.5, it'll come one tick short of that. That's the way it tends to go. I was seeing some selling in Bitcoin off of that as well. Not in the yen. I don't know if, I mean, there was a rise in the dollar there, but it was not coming from the yen so much. Gold really took a dive there, though. Gold and oil probably took the worst dives on that one. I'm kind of of the mind that if it wasn't news, that it was like flight to safety risk, like unwinding. But if that's the case, then why did the E-mini fall along with it? So I don't think that I can come up with a theory for why, you know, what flows were driving that move that completely explain everything. This might be one that we'd have to wait until the end of the day, and we might get some reporting from the desks and so forth to see what was behind that movement. But it was a pretty dramatic increase in interest rates there, right? Like 5 basis points. I love this stream. Thank you so much. So it keeps me going, guys. Sometimes I'm like, well, maybe we've done this long enough and we should stop waking up early. Right? But I really love waking up early. Now, I think that if I were to change something, it would be like waking up early and spending more time programming my own projects. You know, like maybe we could program our own trading platform. I think I'd be really good at that. I think I could make a really good trading platform. I think I could make a trading platform that would be better than the other trading platforms out there. So if you have like, you know, a few $1 million that you want to give to me to start writing a trading platform, let me know. We could do that. Can stop trading for a few years to build my own trading platform. There's a lot of different things that we could do. It's funny though that if I'm like, oh, if we're going to spend more time programming, what the first thing that I think of is something to do with trading though, right? I just love trading, guys. And I love the markets and I love the news cycle. Even the politics side of it. I try to be careful because, you know, on YouTube, you gotta be careful or YouTube will cancel you and all of this sort of. So I feel like I've got to, you know, there might be an important piece of information that I think is important for you to understand that could assist your trading or at least assist in understanding that current situation. But I also will have to bring up other pieces of information to make sure that we're like being fair to all sides. So that's difficult. But the whole drama side of it is just like, really? If you're bored with life, I just don't understand how you can read financial news and be bored with life, you know? Because there's always something going on, man. There's always something. And I really love live streaming too, I think. I think you guys, especially you guys that have been around for so long, like, well, today Octavius and Uzi. Amir, you've been around for a long time. I've really grown to enjoy having you on the stream as well. Andre. Smitty7, he's kind of a newer guy, but you've contributed a lot too. And you don't have to know, I think that is Salim. It really seems like the sort of things that Salim would say. Although he's a way more on this like, oh, but that's all past news, trying to push the efficient market hypothesis stuff on us. But I think it is Salim, and I've grown to enjoy having Salim on the stream too. I really like since the pandemic, because here's the thing, okay? There was the pandemic. It affected all of us. It affected everybody's social lives, I think. But I also had a kid that it turns out is somewhat autistic. So like my social life never really recovered in the same way that maybe some other people's might, right? But I don't think I feel lonely or anything like that because I got you guys to talk about. Probably you guys give me a false sense of, you know, community and social interaction and stuff. I probably do need to spend more time actually interacting with people in like face to face. Because there are definitely some skills with that I'm probably like way out of practice with. We are not, you know, we're definitely friends. We're friends, but we're not. It is still what do they call this kind of a relationship? When it's like, you know, like a relationship with somebody like an influencer that's not real. What do they call that? I don't remember. Like, I view it as like that we have a great stream and that we are friends, but let's just not put it on the same level as, you know, interpersonal reactions or interactions in real life. Yeah. Because I hate that people treat the internet like it's not real. Like some people, they say, oh, the internet's not real, so it doesn't matter if I'm a total idiot online. And I think that does bad things to you. I think that you should treat it as though it's real life. But just realize that it's not real life and that it's not a replacement for real life. You have a girlfriend? Sorry. Okay. You know what though? You know, having kids is super stressful. It's super stressful on the woman. And I'm not necessarily the most understanding or sensitive person all the time. And I think that I drive her crazy a lot. But as far as I can tell, she still loves me and have a very secure. So I think I'm pretty good on that front. That seems to be working very well. That, you know, like, so my story on that, you know, because I was married before and I got divorced, and that really messed with like attachment for me. Became extremely anxious. And, you know, so I had all these thoughts and ideas about what I thought I wanted in somebody. And I kind of gave up on them. I kind of said, you know, if there's somebody out there that's kind of interested in somewhat the things that I like, that's maybe a little bit more sciencey and, you know, more fitness, that maybe not actually, that's probably like an illusion to me. And what really matters is that I have like a stable relationship. So I picked somebody that I knew have the most stable relationship with. And I think that was the right call. And many people might be like, well, but you know, shouldn't you like spend more time doing like joint hobbies together? No, there's kids. There's no time for that shit. Right? The most important thing is that we can deal with all of that crap and still have this secure relationship. That's the most important thing. So I kind of lucked out on discovering that. That has nothing to do with trading. That's just life, and that's something that I've learned about life that I think is super important and that isn't talked about, because they certainly didn't tell that to me. The things that society seems to be obsessed with in terms of relationships, I'm kind of starting to think, I don't know if any of that stuff matters. Okay, what were we doing? Oh yeah, we were looking at Goldman Sachs here, but that's the end of that story, and I didn't really get all of the information that I wanted. Probably because they're still doing the press conference when they wrote that story, at least. So on this trade, I think I am willing to hold it until the end of the day, or not the end of the day, the end of the stream. So we'll see where it's at. If they don't get to the 23, I'm probably going to have to get out a little earlier than that. I did have, by the way, I didn't tell you guys this, but I was so frustrated. When we left the stream, I was like kind of like FOMOing into a fourth trade, and I like almost immediately took that one out and stretched it. And I was really frustrated. I was like, now, you know what? Like, if you really believe in this trade, like, you should just swing it over the weekend. So I took a trade in the 10-year, and I went long, and I kind of played that range and built out a lot over the range. So I had a pretty good position by the end of the week long in the treasuries, in the hopes that, you know, when things opened on Sunday, that maybe the treasuries would be significantly higher. And what happened was that all of that news came out, and the event happened, and the markets went risk on again. And so right after the open, I just closed that other contract. I still made a little bit because of the amount that I made over the range, and so I was able to get away. If I had held it and was still in right now, then I would be like big time down, right? So now I'm in a similar situation where I built out a good position and I'm long, but this is not one that I want to swing. This is one where I just want to see them come back across that spot where they really slipped through so quick. And, you know, if it's been longer than 45 minutes, an hour. Yeah, so the top of the hour. So when we would be getting out because we need to go, because our session is, it would be about the time when, you know, like if there was another meta order short or something like that. I don't think that there will be. That's kind of why I think that it should be good to take this. I don't know. Part of this trade, though, is very much feels, I think. So maybe I'm just getting lucky here. I don't know. I think that's part of why I said I'm not going to take it live. How much would I be making live? I think I would be up $10 by now live. Ooh, hey, see, now that is exactly what I wanted to see. Was like, if we start coming up into this area, we might slip through some of these prices because the liquidity is going to be a little sketchy. Let's see if they actually fill me at 23, though, before I get too excited, right? So the little bit did go into 23, but they just ticked down some. There we go. All right. Dude, that was an awesome trade, though. Like, I didn't... Well, it says I had MAE of 1. But it looks like I couldn't have played that one better. We'll see if they go much further. If they, like, retrace and get all the way up to, like, 26, 29, then it'll be like, oh, should have left alone. But, like, as an... Yeah. There you go. Good entry. As an entry, it couldn't have been better.
Block buy.
And I got out at, what, 23 half? 24? Wait, what was it actually? Filled at 23. Oh, so we're already like well past that. This is starting to make me think that was just a stop run. Like that somebody had put on a big bet on, you know, risk off over the weekend, and they were really clinging on to it, and that was then when they were really forced to give up on it. I'm not sure I can explain it coming back so hard like that. Because, like, look. Like, that cumulative delta short has completely unwound. So, if it means that, then that means that it was, like, just short-term traders getting in and then now getting washed out on the other way. Wow, 26. So I guess I should be upset about my exit, huh? Like I said, 25 might be a magnet. Well, man, this is wild. Okay. Is it maybe because of this? Israel defense minister says to Pentagon that they have no choice but to retaliate against Iran. I'm going to change the title of today's stream to be World War III canceled. Or is it? Question mark. There we go. This move up in the treasuries, that has got to be news-based, man. The speed with which they came back through there has to be a combination of the puke and reversal and news driving it. Because that was like a 30, 40,000 net contract switch. Technicians closing their shorts at 25. Oh, yeah, probably. Dude, this is nutso. ZF goes right for the highs. Yeah, this is really... I have not seen something like a jarring reversal like that. Oh, the last... when was the last... I remember the last time we had a jarring reversal like that. I kind of did the same thing. Like I reversed it and I did really, really well off of it. It's kind of weird that, because I don't like trading reversals, but I think that I've done pretty good with them. Or at least I've done pretty good with them since I've decided you really should avoid reversals. It's got to be a flight to safety trade. I think you're totally right, Octavius. So that headline that the Israel defense minister is saying to the Pentagon that they have no choice but to retaliate against Iran, that has got to be the headline. So let's recount everything that's happened. So, Israel attacked an Iranian general or something like that, and it did incidental damage to the consulate. And I'm sure the Israelis thought, well, they'll probably be pissed, but like technically it's okay, and really this guy has been causing us problems. So they killed the guy. Iran says, no, you attacked our consulate, so we have to attack you. So they've been saber rattling for the past 2 weeks. And then the United States said, okay, Iran, you can attack as long as you don't do too much damage. And then we'll tell Israel to back off, to not retaliate back, and that can diffuse this whole situation. So they did that. And now Israel is kind of sitting here like, are you not being a very good ally to us? Like, this is whack, and we think that we should retaliate. Now, big caveat that I would give on this one. The story that we have so far is that it is an Israeli defense minister. The Israeli defense ministers are like yet together and like vote on things. And they were already voting or saying that they were going to retaliate against Iran. And that was like the headlines that we were getting. And then we got this headline that Biden called BV, told them not to retaliate, etc., etc., etc. So the U.S. is probably going to put full court press on BV now. Wait, is that who it is that's in there? I can't remember. Anyways, on the Israel prime minister to not retaliate. So I don't think that headline guarantees that they will retaliate. But it certainly seems to be causing a flight to safety trade in the equities, in the market. So, man, what a wild move. If the Treasury comes all the way back up here and busts out the top of the like that 108.04, or let's say the open, then that'll really be, because I mean, this was a pretty big move down to begin with. So that is really jarring. Now, by the way, again, it was like at 26 here in the treasuries was like 4.6 in the micros. So again, my yields don't seem to be what I think that they would be. Maybe there's been some change in DV01, but maybe it's due to the yield curve. Because, oh, actually, this is really fascinating. Oh my gosh, how did I miss this? That is very curious. Okay, so when this move down right here is retail sales. Can I, if I'm going to draw and I'm going to write, I should probably pull out. Oh, and I have to, okay. This was retail sales. And this was right here. We don't know what this was about. Okay. And this was Israel. Oh my gosh, I need to work on my handwriting with this thing. Okay. So, retail sales, look at the spread. Retail sales, nothing really happened. Maybe a slight bit of flattening, but not a lot. But then Israel, waboom. Big steepener coming through with the Israel headline again. I think that the reason that you see it steepen like that is because they think that like such an event would probably lead to a recession. So if you were going to lead to a recession, that would mean that like short-term rates would come down very quickly, but not necessarily long-term rates. Because long-term, like, inflation is still an issue, and yeah. Okay, so I think that's why we got what we did. I think that fits pretty well. I'm still really want to know, though, what this selling here was. This selling was super weird. I'd like to know more, but yeah, whatever. Whatevs. Is what it is. I can hear my son is upset. I don't think that he wants to go to school. But he should go to school. Azure boy, you need to go to school. We need to practice writing our ABCs here. A, B. My handwriting is terrible here on this thing today. I guess this is a skill that I need to practice a little bit every day for you guys. It's not the same as part of it is I think it's a little bit too slippery. I think I would like something that's smoother but more papery feeling. This one feels like, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like I'm writing on a really slippery surface that has a really fine grain. And I'd like something that's more like paper. Okay, it did pull back. What was the high of that? One oh eight zero zero half. Oh wow, it pulled back that much already? Well, let's reset it there. S&P 500 is turning down again. What did I say? It was 5080, right? Let me double check that number. Wow, US officials expect Israeli counterattack on Iran as soon as today. This is, well, you know what? This is an instance. I think that when you're seeing order flow, like sometimes by the time you've seen the flow, like it's already too late. I don't think that that was the case in this one, because with this one, it was like 23. Then we started to get the acceleration. You probably could have picked off some of that. But, you know, I have a tendency not to, because I always want to know what the news was. But that one, you could definitely start to say, like, look, something happened there. Like, that's unusual flow. There's probably some news. We might be able to just go along with it and be, like, real quick. Instant icebergs on the bids as you said that. So, yeah, it was just an interesting case study in where, you know, like, I think that today would be a good day to come back and if you were looking at order flow to study. Let's, you know what? So over here in my notes, right, with, in my stream logs, let's make a new one that is called bestof.md. Okay. And here we're going to list today. Okay, and we'll put a quick synopsis of the event here. Oh, let's do like a headline. I need a space too. There we go. Okay. Treasuries down due to hot retail sales. Then a further puke lower on stop runs, followed by strong reversal rally on headline. Israel will strike back. Overnight Middle East tensions appear to have blown over. Treasury's down due to an inferior portfolio, followed by a strong reversal rally on headline Israel will strike back. Flow so strong. Good example to try and judge strength of flows. So this is a day that I think would be worth looking back on in the future if you are trying to learn order flow, to try and judge, how strong is certain kinds of order flow. Because that one on the way up, that was definitely news headline. So write that and keep that in my stream logs. Let's come back to our today. And this one, news and events. U.S. officials expect Israeli counterattack as soon as today. Spark reversal in treasuries. I think that trade that I took was a good entry. So it's kind of funny. When I was saying like, oh, this is a good entry. I don't know about the exit or whatever, but yeah, it was a good entry. I was able to identify a place where they were going to have a difficulty coming back down, and there would kind of be this little, they would get sucked up a little bit, right? I was able to play, because look back at the chart, right? We took it here. We took it here all the way to here, and then it accelerated after that. Okay. So I think it could be the case, or we could argue that even without the headline, that we had a good chance, or that we probably would have made some money. I don't know if we would have gotten filled at the 23 as quickly as we did, but then we definitely got lucky because this whole thing was the Israel headline. So, man, what a fascinating day. What a fascinating turn of events. That's as far as the treasuries want to go for now. We're sitting right at the VWAP, in fact. Oh, hey, by the way, this is another thing I got to point out to you guys. Were you guys here on Friday when I was talking about, I don't know how you make money on these lines, but they seem to work really well. When you get some sort of a news-driven headline that causes like a move to unwind, it seems like they go to that line and then stop every freaking time. It's like the market maker sees something's going on, pukes everything, and that takes it back to his break-even point, and then they get out. I don't understand why my backtesting was not able to show that there's some sort of a market inefficiency in there when I see this happen so freaking often. What is with that? What am I doing wrong? It's so weird. Well, I think part of it is that like this reversal, right? How are you going to be able to predict that it's going to go there like that? I think I need to find something that would say like, okay, you had a really, really, really aggressive reversal move and it just crossed that line. Then take it short. And maybe you could make 8 ticks. The risk reward on a trade like that isn't very good. So maybe that's why it didn't come out in my backtesting. But I think that I certainly have some pretty solid reasons to believe that if we are getting a big reversal move and I'm looking for a profit-taking zone, that I should use those lines. I think so. I don't think I can like recommend that one as like empirically proven pieces of information, but I've seen it happen enough that I'm starting to be a believer. Wow, you got a 2x futures bet off of that. Like you doubled your margin on that one, huh? You come in, you had $50 margin at risk, and you made $50, something like that. Happened eventually to you. You know, it makes you wonder what the rest of the week is going to have in store for us when you start out like this on a Monday. And, oh man. The other thing is like all of this discussion that we had earlier about, okay, so this is kind of weird. Is this good or bad for the Biden administration? Well, I think that the Biden administration doing all of that and then Israel saying, no, screw you, we're going to retaliate anyways, that's going to be a huge black mark on the Biden administration. That they like tacitly supported Iran against Israel to some extent. That's, yeah. There's going to be some really interesting political implications from this, I think. But hey, like, it's not going to be like, it's still going to be rumor mill, and I don't think that we're going to see the consequences until Israel actually strikes back. And who knows, maybe Israel's retaliatory strike will be limited too. Like, they come and strike a few, well, maybe they could strike some nuclear sites, maybe they hit some airports, because, you know, Iran doesn't have very good air capabilities. They could do a lot of damage while still kind of it being limited enough for Iran to say like, well, this was tit for tat and we don't need to do anything after this. So it's maybe it's still possible that it de-escalates from here. Maybe that's incredibly naive though. Maybe it's just they're just going to keep going until it's a full-blown war and the US gets dragged in and there's boots on the ground. Who knows? I bet the two coins would crash, and now 2 hours later, well, if you made it on cryptocurrencies, then you got lucky. Okay, guys, it is time for me to get going, though. So I will see you tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.